All right, we can get rolling. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for joining us for today's Spark Symposium 2021 virtual series event, Secure Your STEM Internship. My name is Tony Hansen, and I am a Regional and Licensing Associate at WiSys. For those of you not familiar with WiSys, we are an independent, nonprofit supporting organization of the UW System Comprehensive Institutions in the areas of intellectual property protection, technology commercialization, grant funding, among other things. Now, each year, WiSys hosts its annual symposium, Spark, and welcomes faculty, staff, and students, as well as industry representatives from across the state to honor research, innovation, and entrepreneurship in the UW system. Now, this year, in place of the large in-person event, we have developed a series of virtual events to ensure we are still providing quality content to the students, faculty, and staff at our campuses. Today's event will feature a group of industry panelists who will speak to the opportunities for students within their companies. Our hope is that the attendees joining us today will gain lots of insights from the different discussions. We hope you will gain a better understanding of specific STEM internship opportunities, what one can expect to take away from such an experience, and what is expected of interns that fill these positions. We hope you will learn how to effectively engage with industry representatives and connect with the companies you hope to gain valuable experience from. And finally, overall, we hope you will just pick up some general advice and tips that will provide you with the tools needed to succeed. So at this time, I wanted to provide an overview of the agenda of today's event. So we'll start things off by heading into our breakout rooms first thing. At the conclusion of the breakout room session, we'll reconvene here in the main room for a continued more general discussion with UW Green Bay Director of Career Services, Linda Peacock Landrum. Now, the breakout rooms are divided into thematic areas, and once we open the breakout rooms, attendees will have the option of selecting which room they would like to join. Each room will have a WiSys moderator to help guide the conversation. But we hope you students have come prepared with some great questions for our panelists. So at this time, I'd like to welcome our breakout room panelists for today's event. When I announce your name, if you could just turn on your camera and give us a quick wave, you'll have the opportunity to introduce yourself more thoroughly once we move into the breakout rooms. So in our biotech and pharma breakout room, we have Jenny Loeb from Promega. We have Rachel Vaughn from Exact Sciences. And we have Angeline Tran, also from Exact Sciences. In our chemistry and material science breakout room, we have Kevin Nelson from Amcor. We have Jesse Bannock from Amcor. And we have Cenk Finkbeiner from Amcor. And if he's joined already, we have Matt Keats from PPG. Next, in our computer science breakout room, we have Paige Barnard from Jamf. And from Noble Applications, we have Steve O'Brien. And also from Noble Applications, we have Tracy Warner Skogstad. In our engineering breakout room, we have Chris McDonald from Philips Medisize, and also Aaron Westman from Philips Medisize. In our engineering room, we also have Aaron Lyman from Georgia Pacific. We have Bradley Mako from Georgia Pacific. We have Sam Diekman from Georgia Pacific. In our food science breakout room, we have Steve Nogine from Ocean Spray. And we have Katrina Smith from Schreiber Foods. And finally, in our manufacturing room, we have Andy Salsuedo from Kimberly-Clark. And we have Mitch Tyson from Georgia Pacific. So thank you all for volunteering your time and joining us today. We really appreciate it. Okay, at this time, I believe we are ready to open the breakout rooms. Panelists and WiSys moderators, you have been pre-assigned to your rooms. Attendees, you are free to make your selection. Have great conversations, everyone. It looks like everyone's making their way back from the breakout rooms. Sorry to cut you off. If the conversation was going well, I was popping around from room to room, and I could tell there was a lot of good questions and a lot of good conversations happening. So if, for our attendees, our students, our faculty, our staff members from the campuses, if there's additional questions that you might have for our panelists today, please reach out to us at WiSys, and we'll be sure to get that question over to them, or get you in contact with those individuals. So for this next portion, you may consider switching your view into speaker view to ensure that you have the best experience. And this can be found in the upper right corner of the Zoom window. So I'd like to welcome Linda Peacock Landrum. Linda is the Director of Career Services at UW Green Bay. She earned her bachelor's degree in philosophy with a chemistry concentration from Emory University and her master's degree in college student personnel services from Miami University. I'll mention to our attendees that while we do have some prepared questions for Linda, if there is a specific question you'd like to ask, please enter that into the chat feed, and we'll do our best to get to your question, check in on that as we go, or towards the end. And this could be questions from our students in attendance, our faculty, as well as our panelists if you have a question for Linda. So Linda, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Tony. I appreciate WiSys asking me to participate today. And I enjoyed the breakout room that I was in. It was very informative.
Fantastic. So maybe we can start things off by getting a little bit of background about your role as the Director of Career Services at UWGB, and then maybe kind of transitioning into how the career service offices at the Regional Comprehensive support students.
Certainly. In my role at UW Green Bay, and it's no different than a lot of my colleagues across the UW system who are part of the call, provide direct support for students, which helps them to reach post-graduation success. And a lot of that means experiential opportunities like internships. So my colleagues and I provide support to students on that entire sort of path that you would consider to gain experience, looking for opportunities, deciding the ones that might best reach their goals, maybe equate with their interests related to their majors. Maybe it's as simple as where they're looking to be for a summer, connecting them with alumni and employers in those roles, and then helping them get prepared so they can actually apply. So resume preparation, interviewing, connecting at events like job and internship fairs.
Fantastic. And so maybe talk about what is the best way for students to get in contact with their career services office?
I hope all the students on the call are very aware of their career services office on their campus. If not, they should be asking their advisor, checking the campus website to locate those offices so they can reach out. And I just recommend having an initial appointment to talk about what they are seeking, how they can best utilize the services that are available from the office on their campuses. I find that too often, and my colleagues will say this as well, that sometimes students just wait and they wait before they engage. And the earlier they engage, the more informative they are, the more planful they can be to be aware of processes and deadlines and things of that nature, which really would help them be as competitive as possible for as many opportunities.
I think, sorry to just interrupt 1 second, but I think a lot of the schools have a kind of like a welcome to like a physics major or a engineering, course. It's usually some sort of a kind of like the opposite of the capstone course. And in that course, one of the topics is actually going to and taking a tour of the career services office here at UW Eau Claire. And it, besides meeting, the staff there who are great because they always come to our majors meetings and things like that. You're right. It's you need to start on this resume, on this Vita, on this thing right now. Just start putting it together. And then as you go along, whenever that opportunity comes up, an internship or whatever, you know, you're much more ready than kind of the emergency, let's run over to career services and see what I can do, right? So right from first semester freshman, we try to get career services involved with every student in the major.
Thank you, Eric. So Linda, a student stopping by your office, you know, maybe besides having a conversation with you or one of your staff, what other types of resources might they be able to acquire in their visit?
I can say for myself and my colleagues across the system that we would want them to make sure they are utilizing our resources, specifically our platform, Handshake. The employers that were in the panel that I was in talked about that. They utilize that to propose opportunities, internships, co-ops to their students. So to make certain that that's being utilized. The likelihood is we're going to encourage them to reach out to them, see if they've got events that are happening on site or virtual, connect them possibly with alumni. We're going to encourage them in any way that they can to make connections. It may be completing a LinkedIn profile. It may be participating in a student organization. Anna, one of the students in our session, asked about the recruiters. Are you open to doing presentations to student organizations? So all of those types of things are resources, options that we're going to be talking to students about to ensure that they make the most of what is available to them as a student on one of our campuses. And that's also going to mean talking to their faculty members, their advisors, and their programs about opportunities, connections they have with current, former students. All of those are things that are important.
That's great. So, you know, we understand that a number of our industry representatives here, their companies are recruiting now and very early in the fall semester for these positions that we all were just talking about. So are there other events that students should be looking to join or planning to attend at the start of the upcoming fall semester?
Well, one thing that I just want to emphasize what you just said, Tony, that I think a lot of students don't clearly understand is that a lot of organizations will start hiring for their summer interns for next year when their current interns walk out the door. So yes, they are starting right now for summer of 2022. Some of them have been doing that for a while. Many of them might be enrolling applications. So when the position's approved, it's posted. They don't take a time frame to be able to hire and recruit. So I think some students not understanding timing and processes miss a lot of opportunities. So that's one thing they need to think about. So right now, starting at the very beginning of the semester, most of campuses are going to be having fall job and internship fairs. They need to be participating with those. There may be informational sessions that employers are having on campus or hosting on site or doing virtual to be able to get information out to students about their opportunities and allow them to ask questions. Very specifically, my colleagues and I have partnered to offer UW career tracks where we try to highlight and focus different opportunities across the states virtually. So there's a wide variety of things that students need to be focused on and think about timing and what makes sense for them. Just because I'm not looking for a summer internship because maybe I'm a first-year student and I think that I can't be, that doesn't mean that that's true. But talk to people, make that contact, because trust me, if I talk to Rachel with Exact Sciences this year as a first-year student, and I go back when I'm possibly eligible as a sophomore to apply her for her program, it's going to make a difference. She's going to know that I'm interested. And a lot of students don't necessarily think about that, building those multiple touch points.
So I want to kind of keep going on that aspect of actually engaging with and connecting with the industry representatives. So maybe you can speak a little bit to the proper etiquette practices, whether that's electronically, over the phone or in person. How should students be corresponding with individuals at these companies, whether that's pre-interview, during the interview process? How should they follow up post-interview? Well,
currently right now during a COVID situation and not necessarily knowing where organizations are primarily operating, if there's an ease of using phones, and that's a possibility that could be a struggle. So if you are able to identify an email address to reach out to a recruiter in that format, generally to the HR department, the human services, however, what that works for the organization. That would be a route to be able to do. Looking on LinkedIn to make a connection through LinkedIn to one of the employees, one of the alumni that are there. That's an option as well. Certainly, yes, the phone call is an option if you're able to get through to that. And then certainly any in-person event that might happen, whether it's on a campus or it's a site thing that's happening for the organization, and then clearly anything that might be happening that's virtual. But what if by chance you missed something virtual? Go back, see if it was recorded, gather some information. Who's the contact person? Follow up from at that particular point. Just be professional in your communication, how you address the individuals. What are you seeking? Information that you would like to know about the opportunity, about the organization, what's going to help you in sort of making some decisions moving forward, timing. I think students think that if they apply for an opportunity, it means that if they're offered it, they have to take it. Realize that their applying and interviewing process works both ways. They learn about the opportunity and the organization, no different than the organization is learning about the candidates. So students really should maximize their applications and ask good questions.
And how about anything post-interview? Is there any tips you can give? Any follow-up students should you make ensuring they do?
Well, some of our industry representatives might want to comment on this, but I will date myself. I remember when I was a college student, if I did not follow up, if I did not acknowledge the time spent with me, with that individual, I was among the majority. So if you didn't do it, you stood out. Unfortunately, today, I think when you do it as a candidate, you stand out, because so frequently candidates don't take the opportunity to acknowledge the engagement. What did you learn? What excited you about, finding out about what you could do as a chemist working for Exact Sciences, or what you could do in supply chain working for Georgia Pacific? Those are the types of things that is valuable to express. Also take an opportunity to toot your own horn, why you think you're still a good candidate for that role. And that doesn't happen very often.
I think that's great feedback. And I'm going to yes and that and really hit home that point about personalizing that response back to that individual that you met with, because it shows that you were engaged in your conversation and your communications with them, and that you truly are excited about the opportunity to work at their company.
I just want to comment on something that Jenny put in the chat, which is so true, is don't rely on spell check. I can't tell you how much I stress to students I work with. Read and say it out loud. Make your eye and your ear connect, because if you assume autocorrect and spell check is going to work, you're going to change the meaning. So instead of saying definitely following up, you're going to say defiantly following up, and it's going to change the meaning of what you want to say. So very simple thing, read it out loud. I do it when I meet with students over Zoom or in person. Have another set of eyes, take a look at something that you are reviewing. Okay, so good point that you mentioned that, Jenny, because I think too often that's the easy way.
Absolutely. I'll pause here and just open it up to see, is there any questions from any of our students or faculty or staff members for Linda at this time?
No specific questions in the chat at this point, Tom.
Okay, if anyone wanted to jump on, feel free. We're happy to accommodate.
Until we're waiting for another question, Tony, I want to emphasize what Irene has said from Georgia Pacific. Very true. It's a two-way street. If you want the organization to take the time to interview you and learn about you, you need to take the time to learn about the organization. So you know about the position you've applied for, you've done some of your basic research, you understand what that organization does. That's a mutual professionalism approach that you're going to have. So don't have that expectation on the organization and the rep if you're not going to do that. So good comment there. Thank you.
And Linda, I have a question from you, just from Georgia Pacific. How can we best partner with you at Green Bay to show the opportunities we have for students at our organization? It's not one of the schools we actively recruit at, so let us know where we can help.
Well, I'm going to expand that a little broader, but also address your question because it may apply to a lot of my colleagues on campuses and the students that they have on their campus. Specifically at UW Green Bay, being a high percentage first generation college student, we may have a fair number of those students that their family members grew up working in the facilities at Georgia Pacific. And they immediately will say, I'm not looking to work on a line position in manufacturing because that's what their family did. I'm going to college. I don't want to be able to do that. So we have to work really hard to expand and help them to understand the opportunities that are there, because they may be making some incorrect assumptions about the organizations and about the opportunities because they're not taking the time to explore them and really understand them well. And that would apply not just with maybe Georgia Pacific, but some other organizations. And I think my colleagues might find that that happens as well, that we've got to open our students' eyes and opportunities and ears and everything else to the possible options that are there and make sure that they explore the organization fully and not just immediately discard it.
That's really good advice for us as we think about tailoring content to show it's just not about line work. You also have all these other levels of the organization. So thank you for that insight.
Any other questions out there from any of our attendees? Okay, well then I'll continue on with another one, Linda. So, having maybe seen a lot of different things come through your office over the years, aside from some of the maybe common pitfalls we've covered so far, are there any issues that you've witnessed students encounter in the past when seeking internships or even co-op, positions? And, what advice do you have for our students in attendance today so they don't run into those same issues?
The first thing that I see is limiting their opportunities initially. I've had students who have identified an opportunity. They think it's great. They're putting all of their eggs in one basket, so to speak, and they shouldn't do that. Apply for multiple opportunities at one time. Pick and choose, be selective for you. I wouldn't want a student to accept an opportunity and then continue to search because that would be unethical. But I think students see one opportunity, they think it's great, they're going to just apply for that one, and they miss other deadlines and they're not involved in other processes because they're waiting to hear from one particular organization. I think they also make some incorrect assumptions about eligibility and about timing. I addressed that very early on, that they're thinking, summer internships aren't going to be filled until in spring semester, in realizing that a lot of organizations have their summer intern programs sort of all wrapped up by early January, in some cases even earlier than that. The other thing that I've seen is they are not aware of maybe some requirements. So there are some organizations who their summer program is only open to juniors, because they're hoping that you would return to school for one more year and then maybe they'd be able to convert you to a full-time hire. So you're not able to apply if you don't fall within that sort of graduation timeline. The same thing could be true. If you can't provide maybe 2 semesters or 3 with the organization for them to get a return on their investment, they may not consider you. So they've waited too long to apply because they're thinking, oh, I've entered my senior year. Now is when I need to look for an internship, when really that may be a disadvantage for them because they can't contribute those 2 semesters to it. The other thing that I would say is oftentimes, again, a student makes the assumption first-year students aren't eligible. Ask, inquire, find out, because they may be a sophomore by credit standing. It may not just be the first year. There's lots of things that can fall into those requirements. But again, asking questions, understanding their timeline, marking it so you have a good idea about what's going to happen and what's going to come forward. And so you go back and you explore that. Those are some of the more common pitfalls that I see. And they're unfortunate when they do occur and they do happen. I would offer my colleagues that are on the Zoom call, if they'd like to contribute to this, that sometimes we have a challenge trying to encourage our students who has a comfort level in a great part-time job that they've had, that maybe they started as a first-year student or maybe in high school, they like where they are, but it's not directly related to their end goal. And that's a hard conversation to encourage them to leave that comfort zone, to then apply and go do an internship, but the benefits are overwhelming. And sometimes that's not easy conversations to have. And it's a challenge for us.
That's a lot of great information. I'll note that Erin says in the chat that Georgia Pacific loves multiple internships. So apply as a freshman, sophomore, so we can get you to intern with us more than once.
Yes.
I did have another comment come through the chat. Did you have any specific tips for English as a second language students?
I guess that would be dependent upon if you had a focus on what you would like to do, as that's English as a second language. If you're wanting to utilize your native language in some way, if you're feeling as if English as a second language, maybe communication is not a strong point for you, and maybe that's necessary for that main conversation to be occurring in English. I guess it would be dependent upon what specific kinds of advice that you have. Some organizations, by the nature of their business, their clients, their customers, your native language could be a very big benefit to them. That would be something to consider and be appropriate in terms of promoting that as a skill set that you have.
Great. All right, next question I have is focused on sort of general resources you could point our students to or recommend that they access to get more information. So I'm thinking, where can they find outside of your office, maybe additional information around, say, building their resume, putting together a personal statement, practicing for interviews, that type of thing.
The students might not like for me to say this, but I hear this frequently from my colleagues, and I see it from our employer partners. Don't use Google to find how to write a cover letter, because you might find the same sample that everybody else is finding, and you're not altering it in any way to make it different. And I've even had some of my employer partners say, if I see any cover letter that starts with this sentence or this sentence, I immediately discard it, because it always comes up number one on a Google search. So look at it as far as a structure and information that needs to be included, but your own writing and your own ideas and your introduction needs to be authentic. I would say the same thing in terms of structuring a resume. Using wizards are oftentimes very hard to manipulate and change if you don't fit the cookie cutter of the wizard. You can create very high quality resumes using Microsoft Word. I've seen students doing it well in Publisher. I even had a finance student who was a whiz at Excel, and he did it with Excel, and he hit all the grid lines. So you could not see that it was actually created in Excel. So be careful when you're looking for open sort of source ideas. Talk to people who hire individuals, all right? Ask for their insights about, some good content to include in a cover letter besides the colleagues in career services, all right? Those can be great resources. I know that sometimes I have students who, talk to an older brother or sister or other sibling or family member who's gone through a search. Really, ultimately, all the advice that you're going to get, you synthesize through it. You have to ultimately make the decision that's best for you. You need to be happy with how you're presenting your candidacy to organizations. That's on paper in form of a resume and on a cover letter. And the same thing is true for how you're interviewing, how you're answering questions. You have to be comfortable with how you're presenting yourself.
I think that's fantastic kind of insider info, if you will. So thanks for that. I did want to kind of just circle back. We hit this a little bit earlier on, but just to make sure we cover this in completion, for the companies here looking to recruit students, what is the best way for them to connect with the universities? I think we mentioned Handshake, but are there other ways that maybe they can be connecting with the institution or your office as well?
Most of our campuses and the career services offices are going to talk to you about a variety of engagement opportunities, and each campus is going to be different. Each college and each department on their campus is going to be different too. But sort of speaking with student organizations that might be career focused or housed in a college. That could be potentially an academic honor society. It could also be a social, Greek, or fraternity organization. Those can be options. Usually faculty are open to hosting guest speakers when it's very topical. So if I'm looking at, a supply chain process within a manufacturer, presenting a real problem about how we solve the supply chain problem, that can be a good tie-in to a class presentation. I'll be honest with you, and my colleagues can probably comment about that. It's hard to get a lot of volume and consistency with class presentations. Why? Because content has to be covered. And that's oftentimes a challenge for an organization. Volunteer to be a speaker, possibly on a good content topic that you might have. I know that at UW Green Bay, we look to our employer partners to help us do programs on behavioral-based interviewing, because I know that my students are going to hear your answer and it's going to resonate more than it comes from me, but hopefully you're emphasizing what they've already heard from me and other people on our campus. So those can be great opportunities besides just handshake. And then hosting an employer tour on site, looking to do it virtually, those are very beneficial as well. And I welcome my colleagues if they would like to, offer some additional things that they have found that have been helpful and that have worked for those campuses, but those are the types of things that we've done.
So I'll just jump in here for a second here. Linda, good to see you. Rich Marshall here from UW Oshkosh Career Center. So yes, getting into classes can be very difficult. And I think the more and more time constrained they are with their curriculum, it's near impossible to get in to talk to them. However, another way that some companies have come in has been working and partnering with some of these departments to help them facilitate projects within their class. So a project that could be done at the organization or an involvement or something like that is a great way to get in front of those. I know a number of our campuses too teach professional skills courses. And I know Green Bay, a number of us do that. That offers some opportunities to connect with these students, as many, many of the students are taking those courses pre-internship. So it's a great way to connect, help them with their skill building. And I know many of the majors at our campus here do require it.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian. Thanks, Rich.
Yeah, Rich, right on. That's what I was going to say. But yeah, one other piece that I think is important that I seem to talk to a lot of recruiters about is the fact that each of our campuses in Wisconsin have a unique culture. And I think what works on one may not work on another. I know that one of the things that we really push here at UW Stout is that those class projects that Rich mentioned, we often call them capstones. Those are a real game changer for companies that are looking to recruit with us. And so that's a big piece. But then I also think that, like Linda had mentioned, those student organizations, I think on our campus, they are a leading group. And I think we've got several students here today that kind of brought that up. They are, they're forthright and they push it out there and they're trying to connect with you. So I think each campus has its own audience. What I would say is this, and I don't know if this is going to be universal, but I know this is at Stout, is that it's very difficult for employers to find success when all they do is employ one or two of those recruiting tactics. So for example, if they just post on Handshake and that's all they do, they might have some success, but the ones that are really pushing the envelope are using multiple methodologies to engage with our students. So posting positions, coming to the career conference, engaging with faculty, getting in a capstone. They have identified Stout as a core school to recruit at, and they are active and engaged in multiple ways. So if you're looking at doing that, that's one of those pieces that I would just suggest you think about.
Thanks, Brian. All right, well, Linda, that's kind of what I prepared to, ask you about. I think we haven't had any other questions come through the chat. So I guess, I really wanted to thank you for taking the time to join us, to provide this insight, and just offer you the opportunity if there was any parting words that you wanted to share with our students or our industry representatives today.
Well, one thing that I would add, kind of a summary of what Rich and Brian talked about, is looking for that variety of different touch points. And one of those ways can also include a former student. I can tell you that if you have an alumnus on your staff, they're working in a lab, they're working somewhere in accounting or finance, get them part of your recruitment team. Encourage them to reach out to the faculty and staff that they worked with, that they had. I know that at UW Green Bay, that is welcomed, and that is a little bit different level of information than when I share it. But ask them to do that. Sometimes that door opens a little easier when it comes from a former student, and also make them visible on campus. So if you're able to do that, I would say to do that. For students, I would say, start now, don't delay. Look at the variety of opportunities that you have in front of you. And also talk to your own networks in terms of family and friends. My kids never like the fact that wherever I go, I talk and I engage with people, but I find out about opportunities that benefit our students. And you could be doing the same type of thing. And my daughter took that advice in terms of when she was a wait staff person. She talked to her customers and she found out who was this and who was that. So there are ways that you can open a door that somebody else might not open, that you're just not thinking about. Make sure you do that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, Linda.
Quite welcome. I appreciate the opportunity, Tony, and look forward to having these other events that you're organizing for students to engage with our employer partners in Wisconsin.
Great. All right, so that concludes today's event. So I once again wanted to thank all of our panelists for taking the time to be with us today. And of course, I wanted to thank our students in attendance. I really hope the discussions were helpful and you have new insights to use as you consider what's next for you in your education and career journeys. So thank you all again and have a great rest of your day.